Welcome to the Good Good podcast. I'm your host, Dee Talley, mama, licensed acupuncturist, herbalist, and embodiment coach. Here we dive deep into the realms of energy, consciousness, awareness, empowerment, and personal transformation to help you create a more vibrant and juicy life. Hey everyone, and welcome. This is the Good Good podcast, and I am your host, Dee Talley. I am here today with one of my greatest friends. I'm so excited for her to be here. Her name is Courtney Meisenheimer. She is a mom to 3 beautiful babies. She calls herself an amateur tarot card enthusiast, and she works in community development. Yeah. So we are very excited to have this chat. This show is mainly going to be about postpartum. We're going to do tarot card pull. We're going to talk about the Lunar New Year. And yeah. So I just want to start out the podcast like I do with everybody. And I just want can you just tell us what your good is?
I got to just take it into like what's currently good.
Yeah.
Well, as you said, I'm newly a mom of 3. And my newborn is about 3 months old. And so I've been in my maternity leave era right now. And my good right now is like after my other 2 have like gotten, to where they need to be in the morning to school and to daycare, me and my newborn, we like sit on the couch and I eat some cottage cheese and it's so silly. And some hard-boiled eggs, and I get all my protein in, and I just like snuggle in for the day with my baby, and I just like soak in every like moment of that, even though I'm super tired, and I'm just like enjoying all of the little present moments, like sipping my coffee, eating my breakfast on my couch with my little newborn, and just like watching her and loving it.
You say it's silly, but I don't think any of that is silly.
No, well,
it's like very much
might be silly.
No, because it's like that's like you bring your senses in, right? You're like, ooh, like the taste and the smells and the
just like I think my good right now is just being like I get to be slow with my newborn right now because I know that I'm transitioning into going back to work pretty soon. And so it's just my juicy cocoon of like postpartum, which I know we're going to get into in a while, but like that was not the case with my first. Yeah. So there's been like a lot of a journey there.
I love that you just said I get to. I'm like, ooh, like that's what's up.
Yeah. That's what's so good about
it. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. I think, should we do so we want to do a tarot card pull for this session, but I want you to tell us, like, give us a little background of tarot, or like how you became interested in it, or like how you use it in your life.
Yeah, by no means am I an expert. I'm just a fan of it, and I'm not like a reader for people or anything like that. And I still have to look up everything that it means. I haven't memorized the deck, but I love it for myself because for me, it's a tool for reflection. And I'm a big believer of, like the universe has kind of some plans for us, and it sends us messages when we're in alignment with it or when we're not, or it's sort of, there's like serendipitous moments, and it presents us with these opportunities to make these connections. And I think for me, tarot bridges that gap between, it's my spirituality in a sense of like, it bridges the gap for me of figuring out, what I need to be thinking on like a higher, like existential level, and how do I bring that into my everyday. So for me, I like pull a card after I do a workout, and I'm just like, what do I need to be thinking about right now? And then whatever comes up, I look up the meaning, and then I think about, oh, well, that's a good sentiment to bring into work right now, or with my relationship, or with my kids, or like something I need to be aware of. So it's just a tool of personal reflection.
So you can pull based on generalities, or you can pull based on specific things, like, okay, work or other categories.
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can do. Again, I've got like kind of, I'm sure I'm limited in my understanding of this too, but you can do your spread based on like a question, and usually it's not like a yes or no question, but it's more like, tell me what I need to know about XYZ, or, like what energy should I be putting towards like this thing? Or you could just do something way more general. I usually do something that's like body, mind, and spirit. Like what's a card for my body, my mind, and my spirit, and how does that apply in those sort of areas of my life? How are they all connected? Does that
Okay,
make
cool.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's my little woo. I got into
you-
it when I lived in Portland, Oregon, which I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of woo out there. I like stumbled into a metaphysical store in like a cool neighborhood one day and just was like, this is a beautiful deck. I use this deck called the Wild Unknown. I think the woman is from Portland, Oregon, and it's got a lot of tarot's all about like imagery, and the original tarot deck has a lot of classic, like I think there's like some pagan and different religious, imagery, iconography in it. This one, this Wild Unknown, is a lot about, there's like animals and color and more of like a natural element,
Yeah.
which I kind of resonated
Yeah,
with.
it's a really beautiful deck. Like, because we've seen this deck before.
Yeah. We pulled this deck
we
out
pulled this deck out before, and it has some really, really beautiful images. I love that too, because it's like, for somebody who maybe struggles to understand what it means, I think the images help us have that understanding.
Yeah. And it's like, to me, it's like you take what you want from this and then you leave the rest.
Yeah.
Like I know that there's
Ooh,
like,
we could bring that to postpartum too.
so true. Yeah. It's like, what is resonating for you with this? And then the other part is like, what doesn't? Okay. There's some quote unquote, like darker cards, or like people would say scary cards. There's like a devil card or death, or
Right.
death cards actually like a good
Yeah.
because it's like being reborn,
yeah,
like the
birth,
death
death
of
cycles.
something,
Yeah.
in order to make space for something new. So there's times where I've pulled a card where I'm like, ooh, that looks dark and ominous, but you take from it like, okay, what is this trying to tell me? What do I need to make space for? What do I need to leave behind? It's not gonna mean like someone's gonna die.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
like something
Yeah.
really nefarious is gonna happen.
Well, I just think you can't have the dark without the light,
Right.
and vice versa.
Right.
That's the same thing too about postpartum. It's like,
Yes.
it's so, so beautiful, but so, so heartbreaking at times. So it's like,
Yeah.
there really is a lot,
Yes.
to
like,
relate.
Duality in postpartum
Yeah.
of just like, I love this person so much, and that's like this huge emotion, but then I'm like almost scared of that.
Yep.
Or it like, but then I also want to be like, sometimes I need to be away
Yeah.
from that. And it's like, how
Oh.
do I love this thing so much, but yet I like need space
Yep.
from
Yep.
this child or from this energy.
And I don't know about you, but I had postpartum depression my first go. And I was like, I love this thing so much, but I'm like, I don't like you right now. Like, I'm like, I don't like myself right now,
Yeah.
It's like all these layers of like everything, and you hold it all together.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you hold it both.
You're holding-
It's not one or the other.
Yeah. And navigating like this new identity, all of these new like just even the practical of like my routines change, my, like the way that I take care of myself has to change. Like everything changes with postpartum. It changes through pregnancy as kind of maybe your primer for postpartum.
Right.
But yeah, there's like change happening in your brain, in your heart, and in your body. Like it's,
For me, I thought that change felt slower during pregnancy,
Yes.
right? Because it's like all this, every week would go by, and you're like, I had that app where it's like the fruit. Did you have that? Like, oh, it's like a cantaloupe. Oh, cool, right? But then it's like, boom, you give birth, and you're just like hit with these huge hormonal swings.
well, yeah.
And
Yes.
it's like, it didn't feel gradual for me. Like, it was like,
Yeah. Like a big weight just like crashing down.
boom, punch
Yeah.
in the face.
Well, you're just, you give birth, and whether that's wherever you do it, at home, in a hospital, in a birthing center, and you're somewhat surrounded by maybe some professionals who kind of know, but then they just ship you home.
Yeah, they're like,
and
bye.
All of a
You're
sudden
like,
you're just at home.
what?
Now I have this thing that
This thing.
depends on me, for everything. And I think I was more on the side of postpartum anxiety when I look back at my first birth with my daughter. I think what you were saying before of like wanted to do everything right, wanted to do everything perfect. There was a lot of like perfectionism, high achieving, like if I just effort enough,
Yeah.
then I will get the
Yeah,
result
you think
that I
A
want.
plus B equals C.
And it was like hard reality comes in and it's just like, nope, like no matter how much you do A, B, and C, like you're not going to necessarily get the result that you want. And that's been such a journey for me going from my first to my third. And still like I catch myself just being like, okay, stop trying so hard to make this, to make this thing happen.
Yeah, because A plus B doesn't equal C. It's like G plus Y equals F. What? Nobody can make sense of that.
Yeah.
And why should we?
No, I know. There's so much of like being in a flow state. I feel like I've found myself more in this go around when people ask the classic questions that you get asked after you've had a baby, like, how are you sleeping? How's breastfeeding going? Those can be really like loaded questions for a new mom or a new family.
And couple that with that they might have discomforts around hearing your truths.
Yeah, well then you're like, well, what do I do? Am I supposed to answer in the way that you want me to, or do you want the real
Exactly.
Do you want to sit down for 30 minutes? Like, listen. So I feel like I didn't know how to navigate that without in my first go, and maybe my second, of just being like, it's absolutely awful. I'm struggling. Me and my partner are fighting. I have like yelled at the baby, do you want to hear that?
Yeah.
Versus now I feel like people ask me those questions. I'm like, every day is a different day. Some days it's good. Some days it's hard.
Yep.
And that's what it, and I feel like everyone's like, oh, okay.
I have vivid memories of you and I, the day that we met. We were at Anna's
her
baby blessing, her shower. Yeah. And my oldest was 3 months.
Yep.
And your oldest was 6 months.
Yep.
And we did this like circle in the woods where it was like, what was the question posed? It was like, tell Anna.
Yeah, like what she needs to
hear.
Yeah.
You and I are raw. We are raw. And of course, like her mom, like she's like, oh, new mom's first. So
everybody sit down.
Yeah, I have like vivid memories. I think I went first. I can't remember, but I was just like, it's really hard. Like, I think that's what I said, like the first thing out of my mouth. And like you kind of echoed those sentiments. And then it went around to all the other moms and they were like, enjoy every moment. This is such a beautiful time. Like and it was all of this stuff that like, it's not that we couldn't relate to that. I just think that we were like in the trenches.
Oh yeah. We're like, I was thinking about this. There's a reason why you forget some of this stuff as you get older, and why your brain like tricks you into being like, yeah, have another kid, because you forget about it. But
yeah. But I remember feeling like not annoyed that the other moms were like, oh, this is like so beautiful. But I remember being like, did we go through the same experience? Am I a freak? Well, like I had that moment where I was like, is something not right for me?
Well, that's like, hard, right? Like I was thinking about this ahead of time before coming here, was like, just things I've learned and things that I really valued after my first time having a baby. And to me, it's like, get yourself some friends who are also first time moms.
Yeah.
I think
totally.
that because like
Makes
what you're
such a
saying, you need other people who are in the trenches with you. And I think it's also important to have some friends who are new moms, like this is their first as well, because obviously you surround yourself with as many people who want to support, and you're going to have other people in your lives who have older kids, or maybe they just had their second kid, but you got to find, if you're a first time mom, you got to find some other first time moms and like get in the trenches with each other, because nobody else is going to understand or be able to witness, or you're not going to be able to have that, like, are you seeing this? You need that. And I had that when I lived in Portland. I went to a, Monday morning breastfeeding support group and found some other women who were new moms, and we just connected. And we didn't even connect in person all the time. We went to this thing once a week, but then we had a group chat going, and I have this one really vivid memory of, waking up in the middle of the night. It's like 2 a.m. I'm still trying to figure out how to breastfeed. It's like a huge ordeal. My daughter's not latching. I'm using a nipple shield. It's like it's not just like pop the baby on. It's like, this is a production. And you get awake and, and then there's your partner sleeping in the bed next to you and you're like, I'm breastfeeding, and then you're just kind of doing something to kill the time. So I'm on my phone, and at 2 a.m, and this other mom sends a message like, "Is anybody out there?"
Oh,
And I was like, I'm here.
I just got chills.
Yes, yes.
You're like, I'm here
I'm
too.
here. I'm here
Oh.
too. And she's like, "Oh, I'm having such a hard time like breastfeeding right now." I'm like, "I'm sitting here in my bed with this baby who won't latch. Like, I'm here with you."
Oh my God, it makes me want to cry. Actually.
I know. And we just like, that was probably it. That was probably the extent of the conversation, but it was just like, I see you, you see me, we're here together. Like, and I was like, okay, I'm not alone. Like, there's somebody else out here that is like doing this right now. And then tomorrow we'll like see each other at the breastfeeding group and get to talk about it more. But like, I don't know, that to me was like paramount. Go get yourself some new mom friends, like, and then like connect. Yeah,
I think that it can be hard sometimes to try to make those connections with moms that aren't in the same phase as you, because like you said, it's like you block a lot out. And so maybe if you were to like call up your mother-in-law, or me call up or your mom and try to explain some of these things, it's like it's very layered, right? Because like they're your mom, they want to give you the best advice, but they also like are really far away from that. And I think a lot of things change, right? Because it's like, oh, put baby on their stomach, no, put baby on their back, no, baby on their side, no, wrap them like this, it's like very, very overwhelming. So I think what you're saying about having like that community of mom friends that are in the same phase as you is seriously like so great.
So clutch.
You and I did that. We had play dates every Wednesday for like a long time.
Yes, that's how you get through. Is
I remember you came over with like beers one time. It's like 11:30 a.m. and she just hands me a PBR. I was like, oh, thank God.
Like when your day starts at 5 a.m., 11:30 feels like 3 o'clock.
So true. Oh my God.
Yes, I mean, that's what I'm just thinking about this now, but like I love being a mom because I love my children, but I also love being a mom because of how it's put me in community with other women. Like, you get into the society after you give birth, and it's like a club. We're all just like, "Here, we're waiting for you. Like, come on in," and we'll commiserate and we'll celebrate. And I feel like that it was so powerful. It felt like, for me, I was able to. I knew obviously I knew what it was like to be a woman before having children, but I think I didn't have to. I don't know. I don't know if I have the words for it yet, but it's like becoming a mom and then being in community with other women has like heightened my female energy, my feminine energy.
That makes
sense. Which makes sense. Yeah.
It's like we're literal portals.
Yes.
Right? It's like life comes through us.
Yeah.
We create it and it comes through us.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no substitution for that type of experience, I think, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, this baby was like ripped from my loins, like
created within, and
it's like, it's super, super wild.
Yeah.
Let's pull a card.
Do this.
Yeah.
I'll tell you as I'm getting this prepped. I pulled a card yesterday, and I just, like I said before, I'm going to be going back to work in a week, and so a lot of my thinking right now has just been around like, how am I going to manage this transition, and how does my whole family function, how do we coordinate all of this
logistics
stuff, and how do I go back to my job? And so I pull this card, and the card I get it's the first card in the major arcana. The major arcana is kind of like larger themes, in our lives. That's where you see the classic cards, like the Death card or the Lovers or the World, or I pulled the Fool, which is the number 0. And in this deck, it's just I don't have it with me. It's a little baby chick on a branch, and there's sort of like sunbeams coming out behind it. And the baby chick looks like it's almost about to kind of like jump off and take flight, but it's like on wobbly legs. And it's the Fool is like the beginning of the journey. And when you pull the Fool card, it's kind of like this humbling, like, you know nothing, yet you have everything at your disposal.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
like
felt,
beginner's mind.
yeah, and I just felt like that was so fitting as I was as a mom about to start yet another transition into something. Like for motherhood, it's just all about phases and transitions.
Yeah.
And like you're the fool just over and over and over again. Like you're the fool when your baby comes home and you gotta breastfeed it or feed it in whatever way you need to feed it, or to figure out how to get it to sleep, or when you go back to work for the first time, or then you're the fool when your kids go off to school. Like it's just this rebuilding and
Yeah.
beginning over and over again. Like that to me is motherhood.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Okay.
agree more. Even when you're like, oh, I'm good now. Nope. Another transition.
Here it is.
You're the fool again.
Okay, so I'm going to shuffle these. Yeah, here we go. So we talked about this a little bit before, but let's sort of say out loud. I like to shuffle, and as I'm shuffling these cards, I kind of like think of my question that I want to answer, or that I want information on. I almost feel like the way I do it, and I'm sure everybody does it differently, but I like picture the words coming out of my third eye and like going out into the universe. I don't know if that sounds kind of wild, but what do we want to ask?
Me, I don't think any of that's wild.
Feels like something you might see when you're doing some like Reiki. So we want to talk about like what
one flew out.
Ooh, one flew out. It's this. Can you see it?
It's
It's
this
this. Oh, it's the strength card.
Oh, ooh.
I know.
Oh, that's a beautiful card.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a lion with an infinity symbol and a rose in its mouth. Whoa.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Okay, so when cards fly out, are you like, oh, okay, like there's one?
Yeah, you
okay.
can.
Okay.
You can.
Because I kind of view it like that.
You can
too, where I'm
acknowledge
like,
it,
oh.
or you don't have to.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
totally. If something flies out, yeah, it's like, oh, was that meant to? We should just keep it out.
Yeah.
That little card wanted to be part of the mix. So we're sort of saying like, what kind of messages and what kind of energy do we want to like pull into this conversation about postpartum?
Yes.
And we were sort of thinking of framing it, like doing a 3-card pull and framing it in like body, mind, and spirit, maybe. Because I like that of like postpartum, so much of your body, but then it's like your body and your mind having to make space for each other.
Full reintegration.
Full reintegration. And then I think the spirituality of motherhood, I don't know, it'd be interesting to see what comes up for that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I'm going to hold these cards. You want to hold them too? And then why don't you like cut the deck
Okay.
wherever you want. And then
Do you go top? Okay.
yeah, I just cut it and then woo.
Whoa.
Woo.
Ooh, ooh.
All right. Wow.
Whoa. This card is intense.
Okay,
Wait, how do I orient this? Like that?
So the other
Straight?
thing about tarot is that when you pull cards, you can pull them upright or reversed.
Okay.
So, whether the picture is upside down or not. And then if it's upright, it has one meaning. And if it's reversed, it can have almost like it's like a light and a shadow side.
Okay.
I think like you can choose to read cards that way. And I feel like as you get more advanced into reading, you can go in that direction. I've just always started at like, I just take them at face value. I just read them all as like,
Yeah. The card's
upright.
the card. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. Should we like, do we
Oh my
wanna-
god. Yeah, I kind of showed this one because this one is
gnarly.
this one is super gnarly and like, whoa.
So that is
Okay, yeah, tell
what do we
us.
have here? The 9 of Swords. We have the 5 of Cups. And then 5 of Cups is like a horse. And this is Justice. So,
Is that a 8, 5, 6, 7, 8?
yep.
Okay. My Roman numerals
I know.
need work.
And I don't want to, because our talk isn't all about tarot, but I'll give quick context. So like I said, there's the major arcana and then there's also the minor arcana. And the minor arcana there's more cards in that section of the tarot, and it's divided into 4 almost like suits. The suits are cups, pentacles, swords, and wands. And each of those is associated with an element. So pentacles is earth, swords is air, wands is fire, cups is water. And like the elements have sort of associated energies and, like cup is emotion. Think of water as like flowing and, ever changing, and it can be ice and it can be water and it can, so water is sort of like that kind of energy. So each of these suits, kind of that card imbues that kind of energy. So we have 2 cards in the minor arcana, and then we have 1 card, the justice card, in the major arcana.
Which one was body, mind? Did you?
So this is body,
mind.
I did it for, I guess, it facing my way.
Yeah.
So we've got air energy, and then we have water energy, and the major arcana. I don't know if each one. I bet you they do have elements assigned to them.
This reminds me of yin and yang, like the black and the
Yeah.
white, and how the 2 cats are like
Yeah.
together. It makes me think of balance.
Yes. Yeah. You're saying like symmetry
Yeah.
going
Yeah,
on
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And then there's a sword on there too, which makes me wonder about air energy as well. And sword is about like action.
Okay. Not
You know,
like, oh, I was going to say justice, obviously, but I just feel like the sword makes me think of like, yeah,
yeah.
like justice.
Yeah. I want to like do it. Let's
Yeah,
do a further.
Yeah. Further analysis.
Let's take this gruesome, the nine of
This
swords.
one intrigues me. There's like eyeballs and like worms and
So again, I look up my meanings. There's like a little book that comes with this set,
So
and
pretty.
there's so many other texts and things that you can get.
like you could go as deep into it as you really want.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have a note on this one. I remember writing this down when I took a course one time, but the Nine of Swords is like the stuff of nightmares. Like it's super gruesome,
Ooh, yeah.
dark visions, anguish.
This is body.
Yes.
This is our body card. Ooh.
It says that the Nine of Swords reveals the deepest shadows of the self. It indicates insomnia, nightmares, and worries in the midnight hour. Often these states are accompanied by guilt, despair, or even depression. You'll be battling with yourself, so turn to others for help. Find joy and reach out. Well, shoot.
Yeah, if that's not just like hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like I resonate with this card because when and my postpartums were very different. Like my first postpartum experience was really, really rough. Like a lot more rough than my next. I think maybe you just know more or you're just like more surrendered to the process. But the nights, I would dread the nights.
Yeah.
Like the sun would start to go down and I could just feel the blood drain out of my face. Like because the nights were terrifying, horrible, literally like this.
The stuff of nightmares.
The stuff of nightmares. Because my kid, and especially like for the first maybe like week of her life, was flip-flopped. So like her day was night and her night was day. And so I remember having these moments with her, like dark moments, where I was like looking at her and she looked like an alien to me. And I remember like I couldn't get her to calm down. I couldn't get her to stop crying. And I was trying, like you said, it was like a production. Like breastfeeding was a total production. You feel like you're failing all the time.
Yep.
You feel like you can't feed your baby. What's wrong with you? This should be natural, et cetera, et cetera. And so this card for me, especially the first kid, is like rings so true.
Yeah.
Like it was dark.
Yeah.
And it took a long time before it wasn't dark.
Yeah.
Like it was maybe like 7 weeks, maybe 8 weeks before I really was like, okay, the nights are bad, but they're not like this.
Yeah. Like, so yes. And when you see that first like break of sunlight in the morning and you're like, how am I going to get through the day?
Yeah. But also thank God it's light out.
It's true. Fresh start. Every day is like you get a fresh start at the day. The sun comes up and it all happens over again. I'm just relating it to body and just like
Yes.
our bodies postpartum are so
Raw.
not of our own. It
Yeah.
feels like between however you ended up bringing your baby into the world, there's some type of physical trauma that's happened to your body.
Oh yeah.
And then you get all of the sweating and the the hormonal stuff, and sometimes your nose is stuffy. I don't know. There's just
Yeah,
all
yeah,
this
yeah.
stuff
So
going on.
much
Your
stuff.
nipples are sore and
Bleeding and cracked, and
you're bleeding, and you're so disassociated from your body. Your body almost feels like a nightmare, and then you're like, how am I supposed to take care of this other
Yeah.
baby when I don't even,
Yeah.
I just went through like a car wreck.
yeah, it's like trying to like reacquaint yourself with your new body that feels like a nightmare.
Yeah.
And take care of this brand new, really vulnerable life. Also at times feels like a nightmare because
Yeah.
you're like, I remember just feeling so raw
Yes.
in every way, like my nipples,
Yeah.
my vulva, like
Yeah.
everything,
There's
like ripped
smells,
apart.
there's
Like,
moisture, there's fluids.
oh my God.
Like it is just a
did you ever look?
no. So I was thinking about this ahead of time because I guess I'm thinking about maybe the new mom who might be listening to this, or maybe someone who's pregnant
Yeah.
a part of it is like, if you're pregnant and listening to this, I mean, you just take what you
Yeah.
want with a grain of salt. But no, I didn't. I had to get stitches after all of my births, and at some point I did have to like put some ointment down there and like sort of feel around, and that brought me to tears.
Yeah.
That was like a really emotional experience, and I didn't realize it was going to be an emotional experience until I was just immediately like having it. And I just remember coming out of the bathroom crying, and my husband is there and he's like, oh, are you okay? What's going on? And having to just say out loud what I was feeling, like I'm touching a part of myself and it's making me cry because
Yeah.
it just feels so
Foreign.
and this was not what I was expecting.
Yep.
And I'm so raw, and like,
Yep.
how am I going to heal from this?
Yep.
And like the answer is like, you do heal. Like the body is so
Yeah.
incredible,
Yeah.
and it heals and you're fine. But I wish that maybe someone had prepped me.
Well, I
on
was
that.
okay. Listen, I have a story.
I feel, yeah, sorry, I
was
didn't give you
prepped.
space for your story.
No. This is like part of it. So I was terrified about what it would be like and look like down there. I
Yeah.
literally asked my gynecologist
Yeah.
about it
Yeah.
at one of my appointments. And she said to me, and it was kind of maybe crass, like the way that she said, this is like her everyday life. So, I mean, she sees
Right.
vaginas and vulvas that are like ripped up, right? So she goes, I have seen vulvas that look like they were put in a blender,
Oh my God.
come back together where you can't even tell.
The body is
Whether or
amazing.
not she thought that would be helpful for me.
Yeah, right.
I was like, but I did look, and I wish I didn't. Because it was just so, it looked like, I guess I just thought that after, I thought that after the baby came out, like, it would be somewhat put back together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, it wasn't. And I remember looking at it being like, my insides appear like they're on my outsides.
Yeah.
And that was a really scary thing
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Also couple that with the fact that with my first, I was bleeding golf ball size clots
goodness.
that looked like they still were tissue. Like I had fears of like, do I have a retained placenta?
Right.
And like, so what I did, I collected one of the biggest clots and I put it in a Ziploc bag and I brought it into one of my appointments.
Yeah.
Because I was like genuinely concerned.
Yeah.
And the gynecologist that I saw, which wasn't my normal gynecologist, was like, oh no, I'm not going to look at that. And I was like, really? She's like, we'll set you up for an ultrasound and we'll be able to see if there's any placenta in there. But I felt so embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, here I am. Like my vulva is like a portal still.
Yeah.
It's like ripped wide open.
Yeah.
And like, here are these huge clots. And I genuinely was afraid. And my provider was like, and
You
again,
just want someone to normalize something for you.
Totally.
You know?
Totally.
You just want to be told. And I think that you're like having to battle this, like, trust yourself, but you're also seeking.
But this is new.
Seeking outside,
Yeah.
input from someone who's supposed to be, who is like a medical professional.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I just need some validation. I just need some, like,
Yeah.
that's the thing about postpartum and pregnancy is like, it's such a primal, like, body natural kind of thing, but there's also this whole medical side of it, and
Right.
and that could be a whole other podcast. But the push and pull of those things, of like the trust yourself, trust your instincts, but then where do we also rely on the medical system?
Yes.
We should rely on the medical system for
Right.
a lot of things, but that's a hard road to navigate of like, where do I pull in resources? And sometimes you pull those resources in and you don't get maybe the,
Right.
the emotional support needed.
Or just like validation of
Yeah.
like, you did the right thing by bringing this to me. Like, it
Yes.
was very much like, throw that in the garbage.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's
okay.
But it's just like, I think that we don't, because these are new experiences, especially for my first, you don't actually know what you're gonna, like,
Yeah.
how it's gonna unfold. You don't have that experience in your like Rolodex of experiences. So it's like, how do we navigate, like, for a first time mom trying to like understand what she's gonna go through? I think it's like, you can't.
No, I know. Yeah. You can prepare so much, but then there has to be this like softening, surrendering, this letting go. And again, like the fool.
Yeah.
You have to just be like, I know nothing, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
I'm
gonna
going to
learn
learn
stuff.
and I'm going to learn through doing and just through repetition. And
Yep.
I'm going to fail. I'm going to mess it up. There's so many, that's just being a parent. It's being like, wow, I wish I had a redo on that one. But
Yeah.
you do, you
Right.
get redos. Every
Right.
day's a new day.
Yeah.
Should we look at the,
Yeah.
okay. So we got 5 of cups.
5 of Cups.
So this is, did you show
Mind.
this one to
This is mind.
body, mind. Yep. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah. So this is like a sad looking horse, right?
Yeah.
He's hanging her head. So the words that come up for this one are grief and disappointment.
Ugh.
I know. Woo, we're pulling a raw spread.
This is a raw spread.
Okay, here's some notes that I think are, so this is in the mind. 5 of Cups indicates a time of sorrow. There could be disappointment or regret. When this card appears, it's important to not make hasty decisions. And it's important to look at the type of expectations you're placing on your others, or maybe yourself. And then I do have a note in here of also kind of the symbolism of this is like the horse is looking into this darkness, but there's like light at the top. So, like maybe there's also even an element of like hope. And I didn't say this before, and I won't go too much into it, but all the cards are numbered, and that is also a numerology thing. And so in each of these suits, there's a 1 through a 10. And, each number means something in numerology. 5 is kind of like the arc of almost like a hero's journey or sort of whatever that. So a 5 kind of might mean like it's
The top. Of
like you're at the crux of change. Like, things have gotten to a point and things are going to change, at the 6, at the next. So I don't know, there's almost like a hope element of like, okay, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
And you still have the ability to like turn this around. So I don't know. I think that's interesting about this idea of grief and disappointment in your mind. I think that's a real emotion in postpartum. The grief, there's so many different parts of, you might grieve the way that you gave birth. You might grieve, that you wanted to feed your baby one way and you have to feed it a different way. You might be disappointed in the way that your partner's showing up for you in the moment, or the way that like your family is choosing to, acknowledge, whatever that is. So I think those are really real things that play in the mind in postpartum.
You might even grieve like the new role. Like
Yeah.
I for sure was like, that was a tough transition. But you know what I was going to say is interesting is, I know you said that this horse looks sad. To me, this horse looks introspective. Like the horse looks like, because its eyes are closed, it's hanging its head, and it kind of looks like it's really internal.
It's gone inside.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gone inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's in the mind spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this card a lot, actually. It like resonates with me. This like horse
That white,
energy.
white stallion.
Yeah.
Well, I think of horses as being incredibly intuitive, emotional. You
Yeah.
know, they talk about like why horses are so good at working with like children and children with different like abilities,
Totally.
and that, you know, like a horse can kind of sense, can see you at a
Yeah.
soul level. And
Have you
so
looked into a horse's eyes before?
probably
Like,
have you, I feel like
yeah. My
you've really
sister
looked into horses.
my sister used to ride horses and I was always so intimidated by them, but I felt like when you look into a horse's eyes, they see you.
Yeah, yeah. They're
They
big eyes
see
too.
you. Yeah. So it's like this horse's eyes are closed. Like it's seeing itself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. With the grief and the disappointment, I think that what I've learned is to like speak it, take what you're thinking on the inside and like get it out of your mind, whether that's through journaling or through talking to another woman or person who's close to you or to a therapist. I think like that grief that can be associated with this transition into a new version of ourselves or grieving, you know, a part of the early postpartum experience. I think that that stuff needs to be like said and processed.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a path to, you're not going to avoid it, but I think you will work through it. You'll find a way to work through it.
Well, I feel like what you're talking about is like free flow of energy, right? Like it's like vent it if it's there, so it doesn't allow for stagnation because there's already like enough of that for new moms
Yeah.
in general, right?
Yeah,
It's
you-
just like let it flow. It might be really ugly. It probably will be ugly, but it'll also be really beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we just let these energies flow? Even how do we hold these like dark emotions, right? Like, how do we hold both?
Yeah. I've done a lot of journaling postpartum in the early days when you're just, all you should be doing is like sitting in your bed or laying in your bed with your newborn. I've like written out my birth story and
That's awesome.
like written out just like
Every birth story, did you do that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really amazing.
I try to do it and I put down every detail,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
the silly,
Oh,
mundane
That's
details.
perfect because you'd forget it.
Because
right?
you'd forget
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Like for this last pregnancy, it was a tough one. That one like really gave me a run for my money at the end. And my water broke without labor starting, and I got up. It was at 8 o'clock at night, and it's November, so it's dark out. And I just went outside. I put on my jacket, and I just started walking up and down my street. I live on like this small street, and I just went out there and I trudged back and forth. And every time I went to the end, I could feel a contraction coming on, and I want to remember all of those details. Like I want to remember that I had my earbuds in and I'm like listening to music and I'm like getting, I want to remember all those things because I want my daughter to hear that story when she's older. And I want to look back on it and be like, look at you. Like, look at all these, or just like, that is so funny that you probably, like, I'm surprised like one of my neighbors didn't like call
Like,
it
are
in.
you
There's like,
okay?
there's a suspicious person walking up and down our street.
She's pausing every so often.
Like, who is this wackadoo lady? Yeah, I just, I think writing those things down, it gets them out of your body, but I think there's a processing element, and you can come back and like maybe turn some of that grief into like a more empowering experience. You're like witnessing yourself.
I had a conversation with Anna too around the fact that like even the most amazing, beautiful, empowering birth, there's a level of flashback and of trauma like associated with that. So like for me, I would say that I had really nice births, like in terms of just like how I wanted it to be, sort of like mostly. And I felt really empowered. I felt like I had to fight a little bit, but I felt really empowered. But even after my second birth, which was like really beautiful, I was having flashbacks where it would be like scary, almost like when trauma happens and you feel like you can't control it. And that was happening. And I asked her, because I was like, what is going on? Like, I had this really amazing experience. And she was like, your body is just processing. Like, that's all it's doing. It's not like bad or wrong. It's not like your body's just processing this really big thing that happened.
Yeah.
So even the most beautiful, amazing births, I think to our systems are still really big.
Yeah. Yeah. that's like, I mean, your whole, I don't know, I'm not even pretend I can speak to like the medical side of it, but everything is just like rearranging itself. Like,
Totally.
how could we not walk away from that being
Yeah.
like completely,
Like honor it.
yeah,
Yeah.
honor how big of a change and how big of a, just like, I don't know, I'm taking a little bit of a tangent, but just like the whole like experience of labor and like bringing a child into the world and like how significant, monumental. I don't know.
Huge.
Do we as a society like lessen that a little bit?
Oh,
Because I just feel
100%.
like after I experienced it,
100.
I
Yeah,
felt,
then reintegrate to your life. Here you are. And you're like, wait, what just happened?
I want every person who gives birth to feel like a freaking superhero.
Yeah. No matter how
No
that
matter
baby
how,
came.
no matter how. Mm-hmm. I feel like I had an empowering experience, and afterwards was just like, I was so proud of myself.
Yes.
Like, I want women to feel so proud of what they accomplished, and like, let's not skip over that. Let's not just be like, okay, now right on to get that baby fed and get it's like, no, just like pause for a moment and just recognize like how miraculous this
Absolutely.
actually is.
You know, this brings me to wanting to ask you about that experience with that lactation consultant. Will you tell us that story? Just makes me think of the whole reason why you were like, I might want to be a postpartum doula.
Yeah.
Like, tell us about that.
She was my lactation witch.
Yeah.
So,
describe her. Wasn't she like a really like
she was just this
plump, beautiful, like
yeah, I likened her to that famous like very very old carved stone statue of this like voluptuous woman. I wish I knew what the name of it is, but it's like one of the oldest artifacts in our world, I guess. And it's like that was this woman, like she was just the embodiment of like feminine energy, and she probably still is a lactation consultant in Portland, Oregon. And we reached out to her to get some help because my daughter it was super painful to get her to breastfeed and she wasn't latching. And I think this was like maybe day 2 or 3. And I've just been in my bed and I'm like, we were saying, gross and sweaty and fluids and emotions. And like, I don't even think my milk had come in. Mm-hmm. And in comes Rosemary. And
Rosemary.
And
I love that name.
This beautiful, full, feminine woman, and she's wearing all black, but she's just so friendly. And she comes in, and for the first like 15 minutes of that appointment, she just coos over my baby like my baby is the only baby in this entire universe. And she just won't stop. And it's so genuine, you know, it's not a big like show. She's just like honoring this child and honoring me bringing this child into the world. Like she's just showing me how much, like, I don't know, that this child is a gift and that what I've been doing, you know, and I just felt like a rock star afterwards. I just felt like she lifted me up. Aww. You know? And
like you needed Rosemary to lift you up.
Yeah. I needed her to just come in and like just witness me or just kind of be like, you know, my husband was there too, but I feel like there was just this whatever energy, this like strong feminine energy that she brought in to be like, I've got you. Like, I see you and we're going to figure this out and I'm going to like help you do it because I can see how much you want to make breastfeeding work and I'm going to help you do that and we're going to do this together. And I remember like 2 weeks later, I'm like sending her pictures of like my baby, like nursing and latching.
Yes.
And, you know, like, I've never taken this many photos
proud.
Of like my nipples.
Yeah. She was probably so all about it too, right?
She was
like,
oh. So I guess like, you know, not to be too long-winded, but I just, you know, it's that experience and coupled with these experiences of like, you know, the one I was sharing about the texting in the middle of the night with this new mom or like connecting with these other mothers like you when we connected when we both, you know, were at Anna's shower. That's what I'm like, should I do this maybe in the future? Should I be...
Like you want to be the woman who's doting on the...
Yeah, I want to be like every newly postpartum mom's like hype girl.
Yeah.
I come in with my
need that
tarot cards.
We need that so bad, don't we?
Yeah.
Because I feel like the focus, I always felt like, okay, when you're pregnant, the focus is all on baby
Yeah.
to a degree.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're the one growing it. But did you ever feel like that where it's like, the baby was born and then I was like a byproduct? Like, I wasn't even like front and center. I
Yeah.
felt like every appointment centered around baby. Everybody's asking about baby.
Yeah.
There's like less acknowledgement of like mom.
Yeah.
I felt like that. So like we need that. We need hype. We need postpartum hype people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And
straight
like
up.
people, I feel like there's an art of, I think of the way that Rosemary came in and didn't make me feel dumb or
like you failed
like I
or
failed or
you-
like, here, let me do this for you. Like there was this really beautiful art of like creating space for all of the feelings and the emotions that you have when you're postpartum of like, am I doing this right? I just want to do right by my baby. And I'm like, she just created this really beautiful cup, like, to hold all
Container,
of
yeah.
this emotion,
Yes.
this watery flowing emotion. Like she created it and made me feel safe to just kind of like float in it and
Yeah.
like get to what I needed to get to my goal. Like,
So good.
Rosemary, we love you.
Yeah, seriously. So good. I love that story so much. I really do.
These are like, yeah, I love thinking back to my different experiences postpartum and like these stories that stand out.
Yeah.
They're part of like, I don't know, maybe this is goofy, but like it's just, this is like the story of my life, is like having these moments, having these funny happenings, and like I'm appreciative of all of the darkness because I got to have all these other moments of like lightness.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have
It's like
to have-
intermixed.
Yeah.
This makes me think of this card,
Yeah,
right? Because like
yes.
light and dark.
Yeah.
So tell us
Okay,
about this
let's-
card.
So in the
Oh, this is major.
So in the
So
major
this
arcana,
isn't-
yeah, there's no
okay.
deck. The major arcana are sort of like these larger
Themes.
thematic things. And then the minor arcana are kind of a little bit more practical, a little bit more day to day. They can embody like people or, more kind of practical application things. And I think what they do say too is like, there's some cards in the minor arcana that are very connected to like a major arcana card. They're like little minis. So, okay, so we pulled this in the spirit
Yes.
section. So the words for justice are decisions and karma. With tails entwined, two cats look directly at you, waiting for you to choose between them, which is right and which is wrong. The justice card implies a weight or heaviness surrounding a choice you have to make. Now is the time to shun the concept of divine balance or karma. All of your choices affect your life, and sometimes the lives of those around you, both now and in the future.
What do you think that means?
I'm just going to say what's coming to
Yeah.
you.
I have something coming too, so
Okay.
I'll say that after.
It's like you can let all of this happen to you and then kind of be in like a subordinate,
Victim mentality.
victim of
Yeah.
just kind of like, oh, this is, everything is happening to me and nothing's going my way. And, I think, you can approach this period, which, is kind of short in the long, term scheme of
Yeah.
things, but feels like it lasts forever. Like, oh my God.
When you're in it,
When
yeah.
you're in it, you can approach it kind of in this subordinate way, or you can kind of take more of an empowered part of it, action. I don't know. That's kind of, but you say what maybe you have like better clarity.
This card made me think of Yoga Nidra, where when you imagine two separate opposing things, it causes them to kind of cancel each other out and for it to disappear in a way where it's like, for example, Yoga Nidra is like when you imagine the feeling of heat and then you imagine the feeling of cold and then you imagine cold, heat, cold, heat. Like when the two of those things come together, your brain can go, almost like it's like the undoing of anxiety in a way. So Yoga Nidra, there's actually like a really, really good, I'm thinking of Yoga Nidra for sleep. It's like a guided meditation. I suggest it to my patients all the time, the ones that can't sleep. Or like imagining yourself really light and really heavy. So what it does is it's like you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until you're feeling those two things simultaneously and your brain goes,
Okay. So is that like accepting both sides of it? Is that how you create like this net neutral?
Yeah, like you almost try to embody both together, and when you do that, it disappears. I know that I'm not really explaining it very well.
I mean, what I'm thinking of, and this is the thing is like, again, like take what works and then leave the rest with tarot, right? And so, we also don't have to try to relate everything to this. But what you're saying to me does speak true, to this idea of like the postpartum experience of like accepting, just on a spiritual level, just saying like, I'm going to accept all of the difficulty and the tough stuff and the dark stuff, and also recognize that there's going to be like the most sweetest, most purest, blissful, beautiful moments, and like that will come together and like there will be a sense of just kind of calm, like that. Maybe that's how we can achieve calm in our postpartum.
Exactly. It's like by having both of them, they almost equalize each other.
Yeah.
Or like neutralize each other.
Yeah.
Because I think, when you're in it, you're so heightened. Like you can't see the forest through the trees.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And like,
you're just getting through hour
oh
by
my
hour.
God, moment by moment. Can't even, yeah. Like, so I guess this just makes me think the other thing, maybe it's because the card looks like it's exploding almost, where it's like, so it's like, it's coming, it's like geometrically kind of like, it makes me think of like the two of these things together kind of equal each other.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Like two energies coming together, and then I like it.
Will you read a little bit about our lion, our strength card? Because this card is really like pretty to me. I'm like in my lion era. I'm in my animal print era.
What you can do with tarot is you can figure out what your life card is.
Ooh.
And so you take your birthday and you split up all the numbers and you start adding them all together, and then whatever the final number equals.
Huh.
So I'd be curious to know what your card is. Okay. If we want to say that this strength card, it popped out as we're like calling in our
other ones,
energies and our, and like maybe this was sort of like the mother card of this reading of like, the highest.
This was
energy.
Like the inevitable card.
Yeah.
That's how it feels to me.
Strength is like the mastery of emotions. It's common to think of this card as the roaring, devouring side of the lion, but look again, the strength this card suggests is a much deeper force that's found within. The lion represents our most patient, composed self, a master of focus, compassion, and self-control. When this card comes up, you're in need of harnessing this power for yourself. And the courage that you need can be found in your heart. I've got notes around kind of like the dualities of passion and peace, wild and tame.
So it's both. It's not just like this roaring strength. Yeah. It's like internal, gentle.
Well, and also like the lion has got can you see that? It's got a rose in its mouth. Mm-hmm. So there's something like
softer.
Like this big fierce lion is holding this like delicate flower. Mm-hmm. I love this idea of like wild and tame.
Yeah.
Like as women, as mothers, like you have to embody like both of those energies. You're like feeling wild. You embody that for your kids. Sometimes you have to get wild with your kids in order to like, I'm talking about maybe older kids at this point, like your newborn baby, but, and then know like when to hold that energy of being, more reserved, more gentle.
I think of, okay, this card to me equals transition. Okay. Where you're like, so I have these experiences where when I was really close to transition, I was so internal. Like you don't even talk birth.
Labor.
Yeah. You don't even talk. Like you can't even talk really. But then all of a sudden when transition's happening and then you shift to like literal roaring.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I'm so in it, but then it's time type of thing. Yes. Almost like your body's like doing these like compressions where it's like, I'm in, I'm out. Yeah. I'm in, I'm out, And so I have vivid memories of actually roaring.
Yes. Well, they say that, the deeper and the more guttural is like the most productive sounds.
Like I lost my voice.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was hoarse after.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
You do. You roar like a lion. You roar like a lioness, we should say.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah. It's, yeah. That's to me like, oh, like why birth is so hard, but it's so transformative. Like it's so primal. And I love, I'm never gonna, I love giving birth. No. But, but
I know what you're saying.
there's this
like
power
yeah.
in giving birth. And
Yeah.
like, when else do you get to get that close to like the feral
I know.
side of you?
I know. You know, too, the feral side, and also in my first, probably because you don't know what you don't know, but like, I felt like I bumped into this. The moment of surrender to me was like feeling like I might die and going, okay, I'm gonna die.
Wow.
And I have those really vivid. And then that was the moment that it was like, okay, now we're gonna push this baby out.
Yeah, yeah.
But like I had to get to that point.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you have to like get your
when else do you
mind-
get that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that process of letting go. And midwife gave me some really good advice that I have held for all my pregnancies, and continue to say to other women who are going to have a baby soon, is like, she wanted me to picture giving birth and like the pain specifically around it, if you're choosing to, you know, have an unmedicated or natural birth, is to like picture that, you know, you have this wall in front of you, and having your babies on the other side of the wall, and you think that like the way to get to it is to just like push,
Smash
like
it.
yeah, just to like smash it, or even maybe you try to like effort to climb up it and get over it, and it's like you have to think that you literally are just like moving through it. Like that's like the energy that you need to, and it's not, birth isn't happening to you, it's moving through you.
I almost imagine like you don't really have a say in walking toward it. It's just coming towards you.
Yes.
Where
There's
it's like your only option really is to just be.
Yes.
And
It's to
let
just
it
like accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's I called upon a lot of other hard moments in my life in order to get me through my labor, and like things that even just sound a little bit goofy, like not even like super hard. Like when I was out in Oregon, we did a lot of hiking, and there was this one particular hike, and I wanted to just give up. Like we were hiking on the side of this mountain, and my husband's like, "Dur, dur, dur," and I just come off like a really, you know, intense week of work, and my body was already tired. Emotionally, I was drained, and I had to get to the top. Like it was such a metaphor, but I was like, I had to literally just get to the top of this mountain. And I wanted to give up. And I just pushed through mentally, and I felt so good. I remember screaming so loud when I got to the top of the mountain. Like I was like, just let out all of this, because I was scared. There was like rocks moving around, and you know, it wasn't, you know, I was scared, and I released. And I remember calling back on that experience when I was in labor to be like, to climb the fucking mountain, Courtney. Climb it, and you can do hard things.
Yeah.
Like you can,
like you were reminding yourself, like, okay, I did that. I climbed it. It was scary.
Yep. Yeah. My body was uncomfortable. I was in a little bit of like a fight or flight situation. Totally. I wanted to just like reject, but I knew I needed to get to the top. Plus we were going to have a campsite with like wine and taste, you know.
Yeah. Like the reward got you there too. You're like,
yes. I've been carrying this bag of wine in my bag up this mountain, and I'm going to drink it.
You know, it's funny because you were saying you call upon that in labor. And for me, I almost do the opposite now in life, where I'm like, when I'm doing really hard hit workouts, I literally transition my mind to like contraction. Like if I can do that contraction, this little hit thing, like, hello, right. 30 more seconds. Like, are you serious?
Yeah.
I almost use it in life. And I'm also like a lot more vocal. So like if I'm doing something hard, I'll be like, oh, like I'll just
like a tennis player.
Like I'll just let the like the sounds out versus being like, ugh.
I feel like isn't that called like inner resourcing, or sort of like taking you're having a hard experience, and so you call upon yourself and like remember all these other hard experiences that you had, and you're like, I've already proven to myself that I can do this, and it like helps remove some of that mental block of.
So were you less scared for your third labor than your first?
No. That's tricky. I was probably the most scared for my second. Yeah. The first, you just don't know what you don't know.
True.
And then you go and have your second and you're like, I know.
I know.
I know.
Yeah.
And I remember getting kind of like squirrely about it. And I
mm-hmm.
had to have like a moment with my husband where we had this like kind of talk where it was like, I need you to tell me that you've got me. Like, and I need you to remind me that I can do this. And we had, you know, like he was like, yes, like, you know, don't you remember?
Yeah. No, I don't.
But I
tried.
needed that. Yeah. I needed I needed that, you know, check in with my third. Well, beforehand, she was breech and you know, because I came to you and had acupuncture and I did anything under the sun that I could do to flip this baby around. And
by the way, you're like A++ patient. Because you do you went like
I went
hard.
I went
Your
hard.
like arms were sore from holding yourself up in these positions. Like you were
I spent a week upside down to flip this baby. And, you know, I think there was a whole process with that too. You know, we don't need to go into it too much, but like there was this duality of being like, okay, I'm going to put everything I've got into trying to get this baby in the safest position for birth. But I also have to accept that like there could be a reality where she doesn't want to flip and I'm going to have to, you know, have this baby a different way, a way that I hadn't really considered having it. And I had to kind of accept both of those things, but I knew that I needed to put as much energy that I was able to into, you know, knowing that I was like, I'm going to give this the best shot. But she did flip, you know, luckily. And, I feel like after that, I was just so relieved and I felt like I just opened after that and I was like,
you were like,
okay,
I'm ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Like, let's do this. I put my body in the best place it can be to have this baby. And now I feel like I just need to be spiritually and emotionally like open to how it happens. And then when it started to happen, I was just like, all right, here, let's go. Let's go.
You're like, game on.
Let's go. I'm this baby's I'm like so excited to meet this baby.
Yeah.
You know, she is like, she's going to be something because she, you know, is giving me a run for my money and flipping around and doing, you know, and I was like, I just want to meet her. And I know in order to do that, I'm going to have to do this hard thing. And I think that was sort of the mental game that I just played with myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's too like the ultimate give up control because although women, I think a lot of times have ideas of what they want in their labors and their births, like sometimes it just doesn't unfold that way. And then we do hold so much disappointment and grief.
Yeah.
What do you say to somebody? Like, what would you say if somebody was like, this didn't happen the way I wanted. I feel like a failure. I have
a really close friend who kind of had that experience where she went from, you know, wanting to and preparing to have a home birth all the way to having to have like medical intervention. And I think the first thing I did was I held space for her to like, I asked if she wanted to tell me the whole story. Like, you want to sit down for 2 hours? Like, you can tell me as much as you, and just like kind of witnessed her saying the whole thing out loud. And I feel like that helped just create like the space for her to kind of process. And I feel like that's like anybody who, you know, if you know someone who's going to give birth soon, after the fact, if you're comfortable asking them, I feel like giving people that opportunity to share their birth story. Everyone always wants to like, again, check in with the baby and be like, how's the baby doing? It's like, ask the mom, like, hey, do you want to tell me? Like, because people might want to share the excitement, but not feel like they even have the platform because it's all about the baby, you know? But I think I don't know, I feel like you might have said this to me of just like, you know, this baby is going to come out the way that it needs to come out in order to be the safest and the healthiest. And that could look a lot of different ways. And so I think when I was in this process of like trying to flip my breech baby, but also accepting that like I might need to have, you know, medical intervention, I might need to have a C-section, that like she's going to do what she needs to do to be the safest. And if she doesn't end up flipping, maybe that's because that would not have been safe for her. Maybe, you know, there was a cord wrapped around her neck or like that wouldn't have been. So there's like, again, this element of just like trusting. And it kind of goes back to maybe this is my own spiritual belief of just like trusting that the universe kind of has a plan for you, and that you have to just be open to it. And there's an effort, you can control a little bit of it, but I feel like
But you can't ultimately.
you have to just
Yeah.
open.
Yeah.
And for me, I use tarot as a way to like put myself more in like synchronicity with that, and like kind of be open if I have a pattern of thought, and then maybe this helps me like break through that. But whatever you do to kind of open yourself up to like the way that this goes down is exactly the way that it was supposed to go down.
Yeah, at the end of my pregnancies, because I had a lot of blood pressure issues, and really it wasn't, and it's interesting because my mom and my grandma both had the same thing, which I actually didn't know until after my second.
You're like, could tell me that,
That,
guys.
yeah, right? Exactly. So like I would have spikes of blood pressure, but it wasn't sustained high blood pressure. So like I would, and I had a little bit of like a white coat syndrome where like I would be really nervous because I don't know about you, but when I was coming to full term, I felt so much pressure, even though the practice was like, oh, we feel comfortable with women going to 42 weeks. I felt like 39 to 40 weeks, like I was feeling strong pressure of like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so anytime I would go in, I would get anxious,
Yeah.
and they would take my blood pressure and it would be high. And luckily my provider was trusting the fact that like I'm also a provider, and I was taking my blood pressures and recording them and like really monitoring it like super like strongly, because there were a couple instances where I had to go in and get monitored, get labs done, because they were really worried about preeclampsia. Even though I didn't have any single sign, symptom, or anything, sometimes it can happen so fast.
Yeah.
So I remember at the end of my pregnancies, I kept leaning into this mantra where it was, when I feel fear, I feed trust. And I kept feeling like, oh my God, they're going to try to rip this baby out of me. Oh no, they're trying to induce me. And I would just be like, if that's the case, then this is the safest way that this baby has to come out. But as long as it's informed, medically, like informed consent, and actually needed to happen that way, because I had a really candid conversation with one of the providers actually who was I went into labor and delivery. So with my second baby, Stella was born 5 days after my grandma passed away.
Yeah.
And the day that I found out she passed away, it was overnight, and I had an appointment that morning. So I had found out maybe 10 to 15 minutes prior to going into that appointment that grandma passed. And my blood pressure was like 210 over 100. And
Right.
it was astronomical. They were
we
like,
need to
go
read this
over,
right
like,
now?
yeah,
Yeah.
they were like emergency room situation.
Oh, jeez.
But I didn't. I went to the L&D. I'm like, I'm not going to the fucking emergency room. So I went in and I had this really candid conversation where she's like, obstetric, like they gave me the whole, like, this is just the protocol. We're going to want to induce you today. And I had to fight. I had to fight. I had to be like, do every single labs, like look at my log. Here's all my blood pressures. Like it was such a fight. And she was like, it doesn't matter. She basically said, it doesn't matter what your log says. The American College of Gynecology and Obstetrics, like this is the standard of care. We induce when you've had more than 3 high blood pressure readings. Here's this. And I was like, do all the things, like do every lab.
Yeah.
It all came back, nothing preeclamptic. And I'm like, I know these risk factors. So I literally had to go against medical advice. And I was afraid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spent the next 4 days in bed because I was afraid. I was afraid that being upright, blood pressures would spike, etc.
Yeah.
Like I was taking them every 2 hours around the clock.
What were you saying to yourself, like as you were sort of having that mental battle of like, I'm going against this medical board, but I'm also kind of trusting my own intuition.
It was tough. It was tough. I called up my good friend Ashley, who's a NICU nurse in Buffalo. We had conversations every day, and she's basically like reassuring me, like, as long as you're tracking this, as long as you don't have any of those symptoms, like she was really helping me get through that last bit. And I put full trust in what my body is doing and telling me.
Yeah.
But it was different than what this provider was telling me. So it was really like a tough experience.
Yeah.
But then luckily nothing came of it. I had the baby naturally, normally.
Yeah.
And, they did monitor me pretty like extensively. And I had to also fight to be like in the tub just because I can't have that monitor on me the whole time.
Yeah.
But it was more intense with my second than it was with my first.
Yeah.
But I think that everybody, once I was in actual labor, because I was in labor at my grandma's services,
Oh, wow.
I think they were
Like
all
early
relieved.
early
No,
stages or
like,
wow.
yeah.
Your grandma was like, "Go get it, girl."
What's funny is like one of my aunts like knew it. She could like see it because I'd be like, well, do, and then all of a sudden I'd be like,
Oh my god.
like I'm like rocking, like I'm in a contraction, and she was like,
The
you're,
things
you're
we
in
do,
labor,
the
and
things
I'm
we
like,
do as
I'm in
women,
labor,
showing up for our family.
yeah. I like gave a speech at like the graveside. I
Oh my
literally did. I was
goodness.
like, what am I
Oh
doing?
my goodness. Your
Yeah.
grandma was standing behind you, giving you strength.
I was thinking of her.
Yeah.
She had 5 children. Like I was
Wow.
thinking of her.
Yeah.
I was imagining her holding my baby. And I was just like, if you did this, like I can do this.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah. I guess when you were telling me that, it made me just think about, that having an advocate or like getting a resource in that sense is really helpful, and I don't know if we like normalize that enough, but I don't know a ton about this either, but I imagine like if you hire a doula, they can come to appointments with
Yeah.
you, they can help navigate like luckily you have an education in this and a background in this, and but for those of us who don't,
Don't.
like resourcing yourself if you have the
Advocacy. Yeah.
ability to advocate so that you can get some balanced answers. Like when I found out that my daughter was breech, the doctors came in and were like, okay, here's a very regimented thing that you're going to do. Like if it doesn't flip by this date, we're going to, do the
ECV, and we're
version,
gonna,
and
yep.
then we're going to do, and I took it all in and I was emotionally kind of distraught. And I came back home and then I reached out to another OB that I knew. I actually felt a lot of gratitude for the community that we have here in our community, and just people that I know in my life who I could reach out to. You being one of them, I was like, okay, Dee, like baby's breech, like set me up with all the things. Like, what do we do? But getting your resources and getting your advocates so that you take the piece of advice or the medical advice, that's important, but you also can create a little bit more of like a surround sound so that you can really get in tune with like, okay, what feels right for me? I don't know if I'm articulating that.
No, you are.
In the right,
Yeah.
of just like,
yeah. It's like you're giving like medical intervention weight, but you're also giving weight to like what your system is telling you.
Yeah.
And like, how do you take both of those into account
Yeah.
by not putting one over the other? Because it's like, well, yeah, what they say is important. They're like trying to be the safest. That's like when I was
Absolutely.
mad about them being like, we're going to induce you today. Literally, she walked in and she goes, so we're going to induce you today. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
could you have said, hi, how you doing?
Exactly. And I was like, no, we're not. So I felt a little bit like I had to like bump up against being, in my mind, I thought it was like a bad patient, right?
Yeah, right. Yes.
Which I know now isn't actually true, and judging it doesn't really do much. But yeah, I think had I not like really stayed close to what my body was telling me, yeah, I think that, but it's hard to do when you're in late stage pregnancy. You're so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so vulnerable. And I used to get mad, but I was like, this is what they have to
Yeah.
like bring this like to want this to bring this baby into the world safely.
Yeah.
So it's not like something against me. It's not like, oh, and luckily after I explained to the provider like, no, we're not doing that. I would like to do all these extensive labs and then we will go from there type of thing. She respected my decision. She said, okay, I trust you. We're going to do that if it all comes back. And she was like we had a plan. You're going to monitor every 2 hours.
Right.
If it spikes, if you get any of these symptoms, yada, yada, you're going to go in. And I said, yes, I will go in.
Yeah.
And so that's how it went down. I mean, luckily it all worked out okay. And everybody was safe. And,
Yeah.
both my babies came kind of flying out when it was time. So yeah, I was really grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me just think about the physical demand of being pregnant and then bringing a baby, but there's a huge emotional and cognitive demand of just like you just don't kind of go through being pregnant without having to do some of your own research and like check in with your own value systems. And like there's a whole process of you having to get really clear on some of your values and some of your wants and your needs that you didn't have to ever consider before you were pregnant because you just weren't in that situation.
Yep.
But it's like we get checked, you know, almost weekly by the time we're done, you know, physically. But like, how many times do folks check in on like the mental side of like your cognitive journey as you're pregnant and in postpartum? And I feel like if we don't have that as like baked into the medical system, maybe as much as it should be. So like I would advise, you know, and encourage people who are pregnant to just like make a plan for yourself of like, how are you going to take care of yourself mentally? And how are you going to reflect on some of these like questions that you're going to be faced with as you get closer to bringing this baby into the world, so that you can have you can get kind of clear on your values, and you can kind of understand, like, you know, in your situation, you knew what you wanted, you had the confidence to kind of back that up, and it helped you get closer to sort of how you wanted your birth experience to be.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like, do your homework.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. So I wanted to just briefly talk about because we're recording this on the Lunar New Year.
Yeah.
And so we're transitioning from the dragon to the yin wood snake. And so there are a couple of themes in this transition that made me think of postpartum and of having babies. And so the year of the wood snake, so we're bringing in wisdom, strategy, introspection, and transformation, and this almost like shedding of skin. Whereas year of the dragon is very much like push forward aggressively, and like it's about kind of unapologetic action and really boldness, whereas the snake we're transitioning into this more introspective, subtle, strategic sort of energy, calculated and deliberate. The themes are integration of growth, wisdom over impulse, and this deep reflection. It made me think of when I was newly postpartum. I think I thought I was gonna like dominate. I was gonna like fuck up postpartum.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'm going to charge through. I'm gonna win the no prize.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show everybody how much of a badass I am postpartum.
Yeah.
And like, holy shit.
Same.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Yep.
It was not like that.
No.
So much introspection, so much that kind of subtle, calculated, like internal thing. I think of the shedding of the skin. And I had these experiences where I was trying to go back, like, oh, I'll be back to my old self soon. And it wasn't until I actually had a therapy appointment where my therapist was like, you're not going back.
Yeah.
Like,
why do you want to?
yeah, you're going forward.
That's right. Yeah.
And back and forward, like, it's going to be a different experience when you try to relate. Like, you have this new role now.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just like fuck up postpartum.
Yeah.
You are.
Yes. That's the title of this episode.
What? You can't fuck up postpartum.
Yeah. But I don't know, if someone kind of like beat that into me, it might have made my first go at things a little less anxiety riddled.
Yeah.
Knowing who you are and who, you know, high achieving, you know, like women who, you know, go after what they want, and, you know, you're not going to mess it up.
Yeah. Right.
You know, you're going to, like, do less.
Yeah, do less. It might
Do
not
less.
look how you think it should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, would you know? You just have these ideals of like perfection, which this is the other reason why I'm glad we're doing this show, is like, I always felt like honest conversations about postpartum were really few and far between.
Yeah.
Between mothers who had a baby and mothers who are pregnant. And I think there's a reason for that. Like, I think you don't want to like scare them.
Yes.
And you don't want to like for it to feel really terrifying to them. But at the same time, I always felt like something about this doesn't feel like authentically true.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like,
Yeah.
I kind of do that dance too with patients who are giving birth to their first child. And they're like actually asking me like, okay, what am I to expect of this? Like, I think it's a little bit tough because, you know, your experience won't be my experience and
Yeah.
vice versa. But like, how do we have really honest conversations about the intensity of motherhood?
Yeah. I don't have an answer.
No, I know. But I
I'm
think
like,
it's what you said. It's like holding space
Yeah.
for the emotions that arise and like what is.
yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And I think like I look back and maybe a lot of people who are pregnant, there's like that smugness of just like, I won't do it that way, or
Yeah.
and then you don't realize until it's like, oh, that's why people do it that way, or that's why there's a little bit of like having to open again to being humbled, remembering you're like the fool.
Yeah.
You're on this new journey. It's hard to help somebody come to that realization before they're even in it. I would love for someone to listen to this who's maybe thinking about having a baby or they're pregnant right now, and to be able to take something away from it, and it really help them have a postpartum experience that is like true to them. But I also just feel like there could be some folks listening where like what we're talking about just kind of validates their experience that they already had, and they can move forward maybe a little bit with more grace, giving themselves more grace, a little bit more of like, okay, yeah, I wasn't the only one who did that, and like it's okay.
Yeah, you know, the whole vision for the Good podcast was like about community,
Yeah.
and about honest conversations, and about just like holding space for these really raw, true emotion, you know, embodiment things that
Yeah.
happen. And so I just feel like this is like grateful that we get to like have these conversations. And I feel the same way. Like, I just hope that, you know, whoever's listening can take what you need from this, and you know, leave the rest.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, again, my experience won't be your experience, and
Yeah.
your experience won't be my experience. But it's like, how do we find these common themes where
Yeah.
we can support and uplift one another?
Yeah.
Because actually becoming a mom is such a badass thing.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's so scary. It's so good.
I
It
know.
has to be both.
It has to be
It
both.
has to be everything.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's not good. It wouldn't be good if it wasn't like also just terrible.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like the beauty
highs
of
and the
life.
lows. Yeah, I know. Cause and as your kids get older and you move out of that postpartum, you know, where everything is just so raw and intimate, and you know, like you shed that skin, and you have a new skin.
Always
and
new skin
Always a new skin
to shed.
every year. Snake year every year.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and then you have to find those new moments of like awe and wonder, and like what's kind of like keeping you aligned, you know, and then what are you like, okay, I got to shed that belief. I have to shed that, you know, because postpartum's just the beginning, you know, not to sound ominous, but it's just your first practice of like this new muscle you have to build of just like reimagining things, letting things go, being flexible.
And it is a muscle.
It's such a muscle. Yeah, you're not going to get it on the I'm like 3 babies deep and like still figuring it out. I won't be any more babies deep.
So as we come to a close, do you have any final thoughts? Like, this is like Maury's final. No, this is Jerry Springer's final thoughts. Okay. Do you have any?
Did you watch that on Netflix?
No, I watched it when I was like.
No, the documentary about.
No, what?
Whoa,
oh,
real.
Should I?
It's like a behind the making of the Jerry Springer.
Oh man, that sounds like something I should see.
That is, clearly you can tell I'm just coming out of postpartum because
you've watched all the shows.
You get to watch the trashiest TV guilt free.
Yeah. Oh my God, I binge watched The Handmaid's Tale when I was breastfeeding.
Oh, girl.
When I was breastfeeding
I don't know about
Hazel.
that.
I hope this didn't fuck her up.
Whoa.
I know. It's like ridiculous.
That's like heavy. Yeah,
No.
heavy TV. Sorry.
No. I love
it.
So do you have any final thoughts or things that you want to say about postpartum, or like women who are listening? And it's okay if you don't, because we covered. We really did. This was like so good.
Oh, good.
We're gonna have you back if you'll have us.
I would love to.
It's so good.
I'll just be your tarot lady.
Yeah, yes. You're our tarot consultant.
Whoa. All right, I'll take it. I think it's probably already been said, but maybe to like sum it up, if you can find other women to walk this with. And that could look like they're in your community and you see them face to face, or maybe you find an online community, you do whatever it is that if you can find just a couple, doesn't even have to be, of postpartum women to walk this delicate, raw stage with, like, fight for that. You're going to have your partner, you're going to have your family, and they're going to play their roles and really important roles, but like find your tribe and hold them close and realize like that could just be for a period of time. Like I rarely talk to some of these women, I don't live in Portland anymore. We've like grown apart, but the love that I have and how special those women are to me, like will always be forever and ever. They'll have a place in my heart because of just how we walked that sometimes dark, wild, period of our lives together. So I think that to me, I'm like, just get in your community.
I'm going to think about what you said about what was is anybody else out there?
Yeah.
When you said that, I still feel like, oh my God, that is like, that will be like rolling around in my head for a little while. Because I'm like, wow. And the fact that you were like, I'm here. Oh my God. It's so true. We need that. Oh my God. Do we ever need that?
We do.
Ugh.
Just, a witness and a partner. And there's a reason why, like, all the women, way back when, all just hung out together with the babies.
Yes. So it's like, you see me.
Yeah. And we're all just raw together. You go through this and then you realize how to show up for other women who are going through it, like with food and with creating space and with, like, how can I help you?
Wine.
And the way you cinnamon rolls.
Yes.
Dee makes the best postpartum cinnamon rolls. But you just realize like how you can show up. I realized how I could show up for other women. I was humbled by how women showed up for me, and it just made me feel like so grateful to be in this body and to be in this life. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, after you do your postpartum doula training, you'll have to we'll have to plug your practice, and
this could be like 10 years out. I don't know.
No, that's okay. That's okay, because we need you. We need women.
We need women
who will hold that space and boost up new moms.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
thank
you so much. I love you too. Thank you for coming on. This was so good.
Your podcast rocks.
Oh my God, thank you. Oh my God. I'm like gonna smile for the rest of the day. Like my face hurts from
I know.
smiling.
This is so great.
This is so great.
And like we've got a baby in the room and all of our kids downstairs.
I know.
This is just mom's doing mom thing. It's like a miracle that no one came in.
No, I know. And she slept the whole time. I can't.
I know.
That's amazing.
Should check for a pulse. No, I'm kidding. She's been moving this whole time.
Oh my God. Okay. Well,
all right.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you in the next episode.